Welcome to the Everybody Matters podcast, a show dedicated to the idea that when organizations care enough to show their people that who they are and what they do matter, they unlock the only business idea with truly unlimited potential. I'm Brent Stewart, your host. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. Don't forget to connect with us on the web at barry-wehmiller.com, on Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and check out our blog, trulyhumanleadership.com. As we've often said on this podcast, we believe that business can be a powerful force for change in the world. We at Barry-Wehmiller have seen the difference it makes when you establish a culture centered around care, compassion, and human connection. When you drive that deep into your organization and you aspire to create a workplace where every team member has an opportunity to find meaning and fulfillment through their role, that translates into a ripple effect in individual lives that keeps making waves when they go home and go out into the world. On this week's episode of the Everybody Matters podcast, we have two very special people who are trying to apply these principles of leadership in their home country of South Africa. Mike Budden is the founder and director of Sabano Consulting. We met Mike a few years ago when he came to the U.S. to visit a number of people-centric companies and attend our BW Leadership Institute's Beyond Benchmarking course. Mike has been working for a while with Peninsula Beverage Company, a Coca-Cola distributor in South Africa, to help transform their corporate culture. Here's what Mike had to say after attending Beyond Benchmarking and learning more about Barry-Wehmiller's leadership philosophy. He said, "I came away believing even more so that this is crucial for South Africa, for our leaders in business, government, education, and nonprofits to know that they can create a circle of safety for people to come together and experience great places to work in. These are places where they can gather strength and the character to go back home, often into broken societies, and make a difference within their families and in their communities. My response to anybody that questions whether this is applicable and appropriate in our context is that it is way more than that. It is essential for our country's and our world's future." Mike and his colleague Bryn Morse, Human Resources Director of Coca-Cola Peninsula Beverages, recently spoke at the BW Leadership Institute about the challenges their company has faced and about the social and economic challenges faced by businesses in South Africa. But you'll also hear their hope and optimism about how their company can be a model for change in their country. And we'll start this discussion with Bryn talking about the economic situation in South Africa.
The unemployment rate in South Africa, the official unemployment rate is at 27%. It's closer to 43%. Because a lot of people have given up looking for jobs. And effectively, 1 in every 2 people looking for a job will not find a job in South Africa. And the problem with that are all the social evils that come with that. Crime is rampant in South Africa. It's probably one of the biggest problems. For me, it's fascinating just driving around here, the residential areas. You guys don't have fences. How many have a security alarm installed in their house? Anybody? Okay, a couple of you. Those with all the rich contents, Sorry. Well, just to give you an example, and it's not all like this, but I've got an 8-foot wall around. I'm in a secure complex. There's an 8-foot wall around us. We've got an electric fence on the top of that. I've got a sensor alarm around the house, and we have 24-hour security patrolling. Now, you just think of the cost. The security industry is by far the biggest industry in South Africa. And it's effectively not adding to it's a waste of money. It's not adding value to the economy. The other thing just worth mentioning is that South Africa has one of the most regulated labor markets in the world. We have a huge amount of legislation. And effectively, if you hire somebody, it's virtually impossible to get rid of that person. Unless they fall over and die or they retire. The hoops you've got to jump through if you want to dismiss somebody or retrench somebody are massive. And with the result that employers are reluctant to hire people because when they flex, they can't cut the numbers when there's downtime. So that contributes to this as well, an inflexible labour market. Thanks, Mike. Just the murder rate, and we're not top of the pops there. We're beaten by Honduras over there. but still high, and it's just a reflection of the fact that socially we're basically a society that is struggling with its values and its morals right now. And you'll see later when we talk about our culture journey how important it is for us to instill values within our organization, because we don't operate on an island. We operate in a society that is becoming dysfunctional in many regards. So we don't have enough jails. We don't have enough police-to-police crime. And our judicial system is such that it's very, very difficult to convict somebody. It's quite interesting. It's a country of two paradigms. We have huge amount of legislation. They're very strict on drinking and driving, but to convict somebody for driving under the influence is almost impossible. So people don't worry about it. Not sure if you want to add anything here.
Yeah. No, I think it just gives you a sense of the state of our thing. There are many more stats we could take you through. I just wanted to give you a sense of what that looked like. And you may be sitting there saying, hey, are you guys crazy? Why are you living there still? We sometimes ask that ourselves, I'll be honest with you. And it is a sense we come here and you almost don't realize how stress-free your lives are. We're constantly vigilant about what's happening in our streets, getting into our properties as quickly as possible, getting that garage door down. Just watching, we have to be vigilant all the time, which does put an overlay, but yet there is something that keeps us there. And so I want to share with you a little bit about that. And some of what I'm about to share with you is I know I'm preaching to the converted, but I'm going to give you a sense of this is our belief and what we're seeing happening. Our world is changing. And amidst all this VUCA world of volatility, ambiguity, complexity, uncertainty, we know that underneath, we firmly believe underneath, there is a shift in our world that is profound, and we believe that's the hope that it holds out for us. We have been through some significant shifts just over the last 200 years. If you think back, you probably got farmers in your generations, only maybe 2 generations back, perhaps 3, but wasn't that long ago. And then came about the industrial age where we wanted to try and make all of this stuff more accessible to others. And we enlisted hands into business and to try and just be part of the machinery. And it wasn't long after that we said, oh, we need to make this stuff faster and quicker and simpler and better. And so as organizations, we started valuing people's heads, intellectual capital. We want more thinkers. We want more people who can help us become better and innovate, etc. But we have a firm belief that over the last 30-odd years, we've moved into the consciousness age. Many of you may be familiar with Raj Sisodia, and he co-authored with Bob's book, and his powerful TED Talk on what happened in 1989. And in our view, that is the catalyst for this consciousness age, which is we're just becoming a whole lot more aware of our environment, of what's happening. Our parents would have probably been okay to work in a company that abused them for 8 hours a day, as long as they got the paycheck at the end of the month. Today, we'll say, it's not acceptable. I won't tolerate that. I will move on. And so it's important that organizations are really thinking about how we captivate the heart as well, and that it's our whole person that needs to come into the workplace. So this really sits fundamentally under a movement that we believe is happening, that we are becoming more aware. And we speak of VUCA as a VUCA world. We have a VUCA word in our Zulu language. Anybody know what it means? No. So that VUCA word means wake up. And that's what we believe is happening in our world. Even at times, though it seems we're taking a few steps back, I think it just makes us more alert and more awake to the possibility of what can be. And so in our mind, what is emerging? What is coming about? We do believe that there is a call for different leadership. And I don't have to talk to you about that in this room, and I know you've had many, many talks around that. But it is difficult for leaders to stonewall us today. It is difficult for them. We know when they're not telling the truth. And it's calling for a different type of way for us to show up in our organizations, in our world, in all spheres, as we steward this shift in consciousness. And we just have to see that with the emerging literature that's happening around us. This is big, and it is happening, and that is the encouraging thing to see, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Mike's read all of those, by the way.
Yeah. They're a great encouragement, and I'll share with you a little later, but much of what we just really started innately believing was informed by the examples that we read in these books, and taking Coca-Cola Pen Bev on a journey with just our implicit belief that this is possible, not having ever really seen it, was a step of faith, but it was something that we really believed in. And this is what is coming about, that compassion, that having soul, love, caring, joy can and does belong in business. It's about the whole person that we can bring into the workplace. And that really brings me to a place that I believe business has contributed significantly in our world to financial well-being and lifting people out of poverty. But the role that it can have in facilitating well-being in its entirety, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, is incredibly powerful. And the ills we face in our own country, I don't believe are going to be solved by government, by NGO. It's going to be stewarded by the businesses and the likes of us as individuals that work in those businesses. And that's what we really hold dear, and that's what we're really trying to help our client organizations capture the vision for the role that they can play in facilitating that well-being. And this really speaks to a framework that we use, and I'm going to run through it very quickly. There's a lot of depth behind this, but very quickly it's a helpful framework for us to understand the different cultures that organizations have and that we experience. And you can see many organizations ask us when we start working with them, help us move from good to great. They've read Jim Collins' book on good to great. Sometimes they're not good yet. Sometimes they're, yeah. And toxic is not a great place to work in. And we know in our world today it's unsustainable because your great people aren't going to stay and or be energized or inspired in those places. Rigid is safe, but we play it safe. We walk a little bit around on eggshells, but at least it's safe. But we know also that when the strong winds come, the brittle tree breaks the easiest. And these rigid cultures, they can survive, but when the tough times come, they tend to break much more easily. The good place is what we call the American dream, what America has held out to the world for the past couple of decades. Can-do, driven, efficient, short-term profit. And many of our organizations we work with in South Africa are sitting somewhere here in the good with some touches of the rigid, and we have worked with some severely toxic organizations. The shift from good to great is probably the most significant shift, because great starts talking about integrated, and we realize we're a system and that we're only as strong as all of our parts are working together. And so you'll see concepts of there around emotional intelligence, about team collaboration, about us working with integrity together, about sustainability and empowering people, moving people from learned helplessness that happens from here into really truly starting to empower them. The biggest shift is there because that's not us doing something differently, that's us as leaders and people being different. And the transformation that takes is actually, I must correct myself. I don't believe it's being different. I think it's us being more ourselves and being more authentic as we move into that great and integrated space. And then you in this room are probably mostly familiar with what endearing looks like. Endearing being what we call inspired, and it truly embodies the conscious capitalism principles, the endearing aspects that Raj would have written about in his books and Firms of Endearment. And we have recognized Barry-Wehmiller lives many of those characteristics. But as I say that, you're probably sitting there saying, we're not all of that. We might even have some of this. And it is true that in every organization there's elements of all of these. And that's true for us as a human being. We also have a little bit of toxicity in us. It just depends how much. And if it gets too much, that's when our lives are threatened. And so it is about where do we center, where's our gravity, our center of gravity in this space. So that's all I really want to say about it for now. I'm going to come back to it just in a moment with the journey on PenBev, but it's just been a helpful framework for us to sort of get an understanding of where our cultures and where do we want to go and what do we want to steward. And this is an evolving journey. I haven't put up. There's another culture we're starting to discover, a reinvented, thriving organization, which is beyond that, but that's enough for where we are now. So underpinning that, who is Sabana? This is my company that I work with. We have been around for about 18 years, and our purpose is to contribute to the well-being of society. We firmly, desperately, passionately want to contribute to making our society a more well place. And the best way we know how we can do that is to enhance the health of organizations. Help them create awareness, help them understand where they can go to be those places where people can come and experience meaning and fulfillment and take that back out into society. How do we do that? We grow their capacity for affinity and alignment. And I'll talk to that in a moment about what that means for us. And we have core values of compassion, ethics, interdependence and teamwork, openness and well-being. And key that last word, well-being, for us again. Not only for well-being that we want to do into society, but looking after our own well-being. And I think I was reminded about that in professor training last week, that not only as we show up as professors, but as we show up as leaders, if we're going to steward journeys like this, we need to personally be in a place of well-being. I can't journey with a leader like Bryn if I'm not in a place of looking after myself in all aspects of well-being, and so that's why it sits so core at the heart of our business. Why is this concept of affinity and alignment so important to us? Well, we believe that if you're going to create value, sustainable value, you need people in your organization who've got the right capabilities. They're smart enough to do what they need to do, but that is not enough. We need to multiply that with affinity, which is a sense of belonging, our share in the aims and ethos, and alignment. We all know what it takes to build customer value and success. And we believe those are multipliers. And when organizations don't have those elements in place, it will divide the impact of their value creation. And so we work hard in growing that capacity for affinity and alignment. And underpinning, how does this happen? The heart of it, it's built on leadership trust. Trust in our leaders and trust in each other, because we're all leaders. And our belief is built on, we trust each other when we're competent. We trust each other when we genuinely care. And we trust each other when we are congruent, that we walk, who we are on the inside looks like who we are on the outside. And our belief is that, and not only belief, we've seen this happen, is what builds the aspects of affinity and alignment. So that just gives you a taste of who we are as Sabana, and we have a number of frameworks that we use to help organizations have dialogue about this. We don't believe we have the answers. We actually don't like to be called consultants, and I remember when we arrived here, Sarah alluded to earlier, I was like, didn't realize you guys dislike consultants quite so much. But we don't actually even like to call ourselves consultants. Our best word is to be called midwives, but midwives because we help birth something, and actually the joy is left with the parents to go on and do that. But at best we help to facilitate dialogue, because we believe the wisdom sits in the room, and it's really just about how we create awareness and extract that. So that's a little bit about us, and really just reminding ourselves with the words of Nelson Mandela that a good head and a good heart are a formidable combination. So we want to give you a taste of PenBev and their journey.
Started with very humble beginnings. We literally used to deliver by hand. We used to fill bottles, literally again by hand individually, and load them into case. Everything's obviously mechanized now, highly mechanized. We have a distribution fleet of over 400 trucks. That's just delivery trucks, excluding all forms of other forms of hauling and wholesale delivery, etc. So massive fleet, but we've tried to retain the family ethos of our business, and that's been incredibly important to us, and protect those values that have been passed down through generations, and it's not easy. And hence, again, us being on this culture journey to try and retain the great that's been put in place by our forefathers, and not losing that as we need to evolve. Okay, and it's keeping the good as we innovate and progress. We're very proud of the fact, sorry Mike, that we've never retrenched, and that, trust me, in South Africa is unheard of. I said it is very difficult to retrench, but if you can put a good business case forward, and you can get around the unions, which sometimes is a tough ask, you can retrench. We're the only bottler in South Africa that's never retrenched. And the way we see it, and I remember, I think Bob Chapman, to quote him, really sums it up, and that's how we see it. If, as a family, you're going through difficult times, you don't go and hand your kids over to someone else to take care of them. You stick through it. 20 years on plus after democracy, unions haven't managed to transform, and it's still very much a win-lose situation and not looking to how to partner business. So the fact that we are not unionized is a huge plus, and it tells me excuse me, that we must be doing something right. And the way I look at it is, if your relationship is right within the organization, there's no need for your team members to go and seek third-party intervention. And for me, it's a barometer on how well our relationship is. So the fact that we're not unionized, we're the only bottler in South Africa that's not unionized, and one of the very few companies in South Africa that's not unionized.
Okay. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about just how this happened and what has been their journey and their culture. And so two concepts we really work with is saying that we need to be smart in what we do. And most organizations we work with, they have lots of smarts. They've got no shortage of people to think about where they're going and how they're going to do that. But there's the other part of being healthy. And that's where we have minimal politics, minimal confusion, high morale, high productivity, low people turnover, not dollar turnover, low people turnover. Because it's that stuff that makes this stuff work and happen. And so really, I think that's what's spoken to what's made Penn Bev quite successful. And so what we've seen in them is their brand. Their brand is strong. We know that, and that's attracted a lot of people. But they've worked really hard at getting a very clear, effective strategy that their people know about, and they really, really look after their environment. But probably the other side of the coin, and what's made this real for them, is the focus on building great people, developing this close-knit culture, and really involved in their communities, as you would have seen in that video clip. Incredible amount of working in their communities to inspire a better place.
Just one comment here, Mike, and we need to push it on. I'm conscious of time, but we had the smart stuff in place, as I think most organizations do. When we decided to move towards endearing, it was a huge risk, because once you're on that train, to get off is very difficult. And we had a lot of convincing to do to the financial guys, the engineering guys, the manufacturing guys, that this stuff, to bring this stuff in, is not at the cost of that. Okay, in fact, this complements the smart stuff, and the two, you can run them hand in hand. And I think that's important to establish that principle.
Good. Okay. Good. And this really speaks a lot to the realization that I think Coca-Cola had, was their brand was incredibly strong, but was their culture mirroring that? Because probably 20 years ago you could get away with having a culture that was very different to what you portrayed yourself as, but today at best that's a glass wall. Who we are on the inside looks a lot like who we are on the outside. And I think that's why they went on this journey to actually start building a more conscious culture, although they had a good culture already, to build a more conscious culture. Every 2 years, we take a barometer check, and we have a tool that we can measure the culture and get a sense of where they've gone. We ask people what they value most, how they experience working in Coca-Cola, and what is most important for that to be a great company. And that forms the basis of something. I think you have listening sessions here. We do something similar. This gives us a great handle to start having the conversations and really, really start listening. This is the first listening bit that the company does, and then they really go in deep to understand what that looks like. That helped the organization set itself on a path. The first year we did that assessment, it came out that we're brilliantly good. We've got the recipe, we know how to bottle well, we know how to deliver well, we're brilliantly good. but there was something more that we wanted. And we had to actually come as partners with them. We kept saying, you got to transform your culture. And it was a great lesson for us. Is this was not cultural transformation. This was cultural evolution. They already had a good culture. They didn't need to change. They just needed to build onto that and deepen that. And they clearly are heading towards that. Out of the survey, we heard from the people, which really gave an ability to craft the purpose of PenBev, where they had an opportunity to revisit that. Bryn will just briefly talk to that.
And just coming out of that, we recrafted our purpose, more meaningful to you'd stop people and no one would know what our purpose was, including leadership. So really just refreshing and uplifting our communities, inspiring moments of optimism and happiness, and creating value and making a difference that matters. And if you break it down, you see it's quite meaningful. Okay, Mike.
And I think the big message in this has been, this is not only true for outside of the organization, but we're working really hard to say, if it's the culture is who we on the inside looks like we on the outside, are we inspiring moments of optimism and happiness? Because that's what gives energy. Are we refreshing this community and making sure it's uplifted? And at the heart of this, I think, is this organization is starting to be able to create a microcosm of a more functional society. In this society, people go home to those pictures I showed you earlier. They go home to places like that from PenBev every day. And if nothing else, I can get some immunity in the space to just make them stronger to go back out there and deal with the crises of their families, then this organization is doing a wonderful thing in our world. I'm not going to go into the how now, essentially to put their quality Coke into outreach of desire, but they are focusing on a sustainable company that offers people opportunity for innovation, growth, and collaboration. This is also came out of their listening sessions with their people. This was what the people asked for, was to say that how are we going to do this? Well, our people are number one, that's the core value, and they do that, they make it a fact through being fair, through being accountable, through continuously improving, and through encouraging great teamwork. And I think we're just going to end this section with just some of the key points on the journey. Bryn, yeah?
Yeah, there's quite a lot here. I'm sorry you can't see it that well, I'm sure, but just a couple of things I really want to highlight. The first thing is, it's a road going somewhere, but there's not a clearly defined destination. And this is something that I had to tussle with leadership. Kept on saying, yeah, but where are we going? We want to see what the future looks like. And I said to the guys, let's not get hung up on the destination. The journey is what's important for us. So these are a number of things that we've put in place here. And the other thing is, a lot of them are don't cost you anything. Okay, it's not as if you've got to go and spend huge amounts of money. But what is fundamental, that's just the CVA. We started measuring our culture in 2012, and that was when Sabano came in. We thought we had a great culture, but we needed to put it out there and let's go and do a dipstick and check that. We had a very good turnout of over 80%. Leadership, critical. Don't even start this journey if leadership are not on board. And if leadership are not authentic about it, you're dead in the water. So that is critical. The other one that I really want to just call out is your junior or your team leaders at that level. That group has, in this journey, potentially the most to lose, but also the most to gain. These are the guys that have the most direct reports. And what you're effectively doing by going on this journey, you're giving up your positional power. So gone are the days where that yard manager says, you do it because I say you do it, don't argue with me. Now he's got to inspire and motivate. And that's not as easy as saying, I'm the boss, you do what I tell you to do. Critical that one gets this team on board. Our trip to the US, Mike will just touch on that briefly. I think we should move on, Mike.
And I think one of the big things is there were great learnings we've had from Barry-Wehmiller. The organization restructured to depict itself more as an organization where leaders serve. And we do not call people managers anymore. Sometimes fall into the trap, but they are team members and we are team leaders. And it's really building into that consciousness, into the culture. Just very briefly, this was our visit to the US some 2 years back. The reason why we did it was the directors were asking me, is this real? You're just trying to sell us something here? And is it a pipe dream? And we were blown away by experiencing the energy in organizations, the reality of this. But most of all, the big question was, is this appropriate for our context? And what we actually experienced deep down underneath, this is about humanity. And it's about that we can be excellent and we can care. And those two things can actually belong together in business. And that's a real big takeout that we took, in an awareness that I think really brought Bryn's team even closer together and onto the journey. This has resulted into an incredible partnership amongst us with Barry-Wehmiller, with Coca-Cola Peninsula Beverage and ourselves in forging a partnership to see how can we bring some of what you do into our context, into South Africa. And we're incredibly excited to announce that we are establishing the Coca-Cola Pen Bev Leadership University, which launches in May, where we believe everyone has the potential to make a difference that matters. And that's incredibly important in our society. We want to equip people to be able to do that. And we will launch the university with Listen Like a Leader, as we believe that's going to be fundamental in helping people to really hear each other, where we've got this deep division. We've had lots of diversity training and why customs are different, but our people, we haven't started hearing each other yet and really understanding where we're coming from and accepting one another. And that's something that we believe this is going to be a key catalyst for us to really grip on with that. So that's a little bit about our story, and I really just want to end off with this, is that we're nurturing something that's really special, and we believe it is something, a birth of something new in our world. Whilst at times our world seems tough and hard, we are on the brink of something new being birthed. And we all hold that. Every one of us in this room is holding and stewarding that. I love this quote by Mary Oliver. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about the BW Leadership Institute, go to their website, bwleadershipinstitute.com. If you'd like to find out more about Bob Chapman and Raj Sisodia's book, Everybody Matters, The Extraordinary Power of Caring for Your People Like Family, go to everybodymattersbook.com. For updates on the book, this podcast, for a lot of great content and insight, don't forget to connect with us on the web at barry-wehmiller.com, on Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and check out our blog, trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, Everybody Matters is the only business idea with truly unlimited potential.